Okay, so let's take a look at how we use this fixed stitch template. So I'm just using the training data source. There's probably a better data source out there, but this will show. Right now I have a template. It's going through. You notice it's jumped, like it's just doing no ditch and then it's putting a ditch and then it kind of jumps back and forth. And then I need a ditch here to go out to that culvert. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a fixed ditch so I get a ditch through this whole thing. And then I'll take a look at the profile and make my edits where I want. So you could easily just focus in on a given area. So you could do like a normal template through, see where your kind of fill condition is, and then maybe just template drop that location and just create a ditch profile just for that given area. You take what I'm showing here and apply it as needed. I created just a new template file here, just so we're not even going to use any kind of templates in there currently. So in here, I just made a demo template, and right now it has just the backbone, no end conditions. So I'm going to bring in my end conditions here, and what I need to keep in mind is the full process. So I'm going to throw in a fixed end condition, but then I'm going to want to switch it after I get my profile back to a regular one, and I'm going to want those two to be the same. Or obviously my profile might not work out. So I want to make sure that between my fixed ditch and then the regular end condition, I got the same graded shoulder widths, I got the same force slopes, and same ditch width, like all that stuff needs to be the same. So you might want to create two more templates here. One for your regular end condition and one for your fixed ditch, just to kind of have it. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go down into my end conditions and I'm just going to pick one. Let's get the fixed ditch. Let's just do a common fixed ditch here. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it down here. So that'll be what I use for my fixed ditch. And then let's create a new template. I'll just call it regular EC for end condition or something like that. So what I want to do is make sure that my regular end condition matches my fixed ditch end condition. So if I take a look here at my parametric constraints, my force slope, which doesn't really matter because it's on top of my graded shoulder, my ditch force slope, depth is up here. So we're at 1 to 4 force slope. Our ditch depth is just a foot. So take a look at our graded shoulder. We're at 8% for 8. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to grab probably this one is probably the closest I have here. And I guess I could just copy this, paste it down here, and then just delete that one. Rename this to regular EC. I want to make sure that this one 8, so make sure my graded width is the same here. My force slope, I don't actually need that one, so we'll change that to 0. Make sure we're at 1 to 4, which we are, or 1 foot depth. And then my back slopes are 3 to 1 and 2 to 1. And my ditch width is 2, which this one I believe is 2 as well. Ditch width is 2. Okay. So what I'm making sure here is that these two are set up the same way, which really when we get into the fixed ditch situation, this is the back slope that we'll be holding. So maybe you don't even worry about a 3-to-1. Okay, so now I know that my conditions are all the same. So let's just go to our demo. Let's add this fixed ditch in first. So I'm going to mirror it. Should make sure my apply fixes are on. I'm going to just snap right on there. Okay, so now I got my template ready to go. Maybe I'll rename this to fixed ditch. Let me save it. And let me switch this template out. Pick this one. Okay, so now you can kind of see that I've forced a ditch through this whole thing. Okay. So, this is just an example, so, obviously apply it as needed. But so now what we're going to do is, maybe I want to smooth out this profile here, right? This gives me a good spot, but right now I can't really add any point controls or constraints to this, as it'll mess up that fixtures template, as I mentioned in the last video, that the way it's set up is not really conducive for applying a bunch of edits to it. So it's a starting point. So let's go get that profile projected onto our centerline alignment, and then we'll come back and switch the template back to the regular one, and then use that projected profile to control our ditch. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to my other file now. Okay, so I'm in my file that contains the alignment for this corridor, and as you can see, I already have the reference to my corridor, so we can see our drainage, our ditch coming in here. So what I want to do is I want to project this profile from this inside ditch line to my center line, and then maybe I modify or draw a new profile, and then use that. So to do that, we're just going to go up to our ribbon, open rows modeling, geometry, the vertical section. Under the profile creation tools, there's just a simple project profile to element. So we'll choose that. I'll bring my dialog over here. So the feature definition, I'm just going to use proposed ditch line. Name, I'll just say ditch line 1 for now, but you can obviously give it the name you want. I'll select my element I want to project, and then I'll select what I want to project onto. And then I get that profile added in here. Okay. So, this is just a demonstration. So, maybe you don't want a ditch through your whole project. And maybe you just need certain areas, and so then you could just make your ditch profile. You could just draw in certain areas that you want and give them all names, and then you could just add point controls in to control those given areas. But what I want to do first is I want to make sure I select this, and I want to make sure I remove the rules from it. Okay, that's very important. If you don't remove the rules, then this profile will stay kind of linked, so it'll dynamically change as you change your template. Which, if we want to make sure our ditch stays at this profile, we want to make sure our profile isn't going to change, right? So make sure you remove those rules. But typically, you're probably going to come in here and start drawing lines. So I'll change my feature definition here to to drainage, just ditch line. Maybe you come in here and you start drawing. Now the key thing to remember is that you don't ever go above this profile, right? Because once you go above it, you're pushing your ditch up in elevation, which is then pushing your back slope above your existing terrain, so it'll never actually meet existing terrain and never solve. So, you could come in here and start drawing. Maybe you just stay slightly under, and then you could fix your profile, do whatever you want, right? And then when you're done, you can complex that into an element, a profile, and give it a name. But I'm just going to get rid of that. For this demonstration purposes, I'm just going to use this profile. So you do want to make sure it has a name, because that's what you're going to be using when you create your point control. Another thing to be careful is the further you get away from this, the more changes that's going to make. So if I push it down a lot more, that's going to push this ditch down more, which in return pushes it out more. So as the terrain changes, you might have a different condition happen when you actually go and solve it. So things just to be conscious of. Also, keep in mind that this is projected onto the center line. So, if from here to here, that length is longer than from here to here because it's a straight perpendicular projection onto the center line. So if you're trying to do things like slopes, actual slope values, the slope here is not necessarily going to be the actual slope. Hopefully that made sense what I was describing, but just things to remember. Okay, so I have my ditch profile that I want to use in here. I have a name. I made sure the rules are off of it. So now let's jump back to the corridor file. Okay, so I am back in my corridor file, and so I want to fix up my end condition here so that it uses that projected profile. Okay. So again, right now what's there is kind of a starting profile. If you draw in your new one to smooth out some things maybe, and you now want to make your ditch follow that. Well, with the current template we're using, you can't point control to it because it won't honor the slope. So the forward slope because of the way the fixed ditch is set up because it comes back on itself. So we need to switch back to a regular one, and that's kind of just my recommendation is just use this fixed ditch as a way to kind of get that initial ditch profile to get you started, and then switch back to a regular one so that as you get further on in your design, you don't run into problems with this fixed ditch not working when you start adding controls to it. So maybe we want to keep that template. I don't know. Obviously, you could just update it. It's really up to you. So let me copy and paste it. Let me just, maybe I just make that one named like that. All right, so make that one active. And so what I want to do is I want to switch the grading out. So one thing I'd like to do, just double check here is bring my regular one in here, mirror it. Now if I come and I go place it and it lines up right on top of my fixed ditch one, that's a good indicator that I had the same settings, so the same graded width, the same graded shoulder slope, same force slope, that kind of stuff. Because if they are different, then the profile that you just made for your ditch might not work anymore. Might not solve because it could have pushed your ditch out just a little bit more, and which would have maybe made your ditch profile lower. So you do want to make sure they are the same, or you're going to have variables that you didn't account for here. So now that I just quickly double check they are the same, let me cancel that and let me just switch out my end conditions here, which it's already mirrored still. So I'll just come in here and drop it right on. And now I have just a regular one. So let me save this. And let me switch my template to my new regular template. So I'm just going to come in here, switch it to demo. And kind of got what I expected. I'm going to get some ditches and some not. So now what I want to do is I want to add a point control to force this ditch to follow the profile that I made. So, there's plenty of different ways to add a point control. So I'll just come here. I'll do it this way. So I'm going to add a point control. And so in this case, I'm just going to go the whole extent. Give it a name. Description, right ditch is fine. What point do you want? It's going to be the right ditch inside. I want to just control it vertically. So linear geometry, what is the element? It's going to be on my alignment. What profile do I want to use? I want to use that one that I made. I remember it was named ditch line 1. I'll leave it priority, and then I don't want to do anything with the offsets. I want it to match that profile. Okay. Go in here, let it process, and now you see I have my ditch line following that profile. Okay. So one last note while we're talking about it is my fixed ditch template. It did have like a checkpoint, a height check here, 2-to-1 height check, whereas my regular one didn't. So depending on what you did with your profile, if you drew something in, that height could change. So if you really wanted to make sure that you were meeting your minimum ditch requirement, you can go ahead and add that height checkpoint in, and a bunch of the templates have it. So if I just go and look at one. Okay, so if I want to add that height checkpoint, if I just look at this this point, it's just a point that has the same slope as your back slope, and it just has a height from your ditch point. It's just to get it to not solve once you get inside there. So if I wanted to add that, I could just come here, right click on it, insert point, finish. Give it a do not construct. You can call it a height check. Don't want to check for interception. You could do a slope, or you could just do a vector offset between these 2 points, and then vertically about ditch to whatever height you want. And then I come in here. As you see, as I get below that, it fails to solve. So that's very easy to add if you want to do that as a one final fail safe there or catch. But that is really all there is to it. So you pretty much use a fixed ditch, get an initial profile, use that profile to help you make one. Don't forget about removing the rules on it, and then come back here, switch your template back, and then point control to that. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. Hopefully this was helpful for you guys.